Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about another silent film, another silent horror film, and this one is not a full-length film, it's a little bit short, well, it's very much shorter, but like I said before in the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari video, when people think of horror movies, they usually think of blood, monsters, and psychological terror. But horror didn't begin that way. Didn't begin with screams or jump scares. Some consider it to have begun with smoke, shadows, and a man dressed as the devil. So in 1896, this is like a year after cinema was, like, I would say, birthed. A short French silent film changed, like, the film history forever. It's originally titled La Manoir du diable. I hope I said that right, but it translates to The House of the Devil or The Devil's Manor. And this short film is widely believed to be the first horror film ever made. And I know I said in the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari video that that movie was considered to be the first horror movie ever made. And it's kind of, I don't know. A lot of people say different things. Like, if you want to get technical with it, this movie, The House of the Devil, would be considered the first ever horror film. But if you want to be like, okay, there's like an entire, like, a 1 hour story to follow. There's characters that you follow. People talk to each other. And, there's like a script. Then you would consider The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari to be the first horror movie ever. But you can think about whatever you want. You can form your own opinion. But today we're going to break down this pretty creepy, eerie 4-minute silent film from start to finish, like how we always do. And we're going to explain what the story actually is and what it means. And, why it was made, when, how it was made, why it matters, and how silent films came to be. So, how this movie was almost completely lost before it was rediscovered decades and decades later. So, let's start. The film opens inside with a dark medieval castle, and it instantly sets an ominous tone, and bats flutter across the screen, and in a burst of smoke, the devil himself suddenly appears. And, it's this guy just in a devil outfit. It looks really cool. This wasn't just spooky for its time. This was, like, groundbreaking because this is 1896. You got to realize how old that is. The audience had never seen somebody just disappear and appear like that, so this is like genuine magic. But yeah, so the devil, he raises his arms and he conjures a large cauldron, and he starts pulling in a lot of weird, strange creatures out of thin air. Like skeletons, they materialize and then they vanish and then they reappear. And then a woman is summoned, then turned into bones, and everything happens in like a dreamlike logic, as if like you're like a dreamlike logic, like you're dreaming. And as if the house or the castle itself is cursed. The whole, like, you only stay in one room, but the castle, like, the whole structure of it, it's pretty cool. And then soon after, two travelers, they enter the castle, and they're unaware of all of this, like, supernatural, bazooky, crazy stuff going on, and they're immediately confronted by the devil. So he, like, appears again, and he starts doing his, like, little tricks, and ghosts appear, and then skeletons appear, and then they start dancing, and then objects start to move on their own. And every time these two travelers, they try and fight back, the devil just vanishes, and he reappears somewhere else, like he's just taunting them the whole time. But then, eventually, one of the men, they pull out like a crucifix, one of the crosses, and the devil, this is what gets him. He recoils like he's in fear, and he just disappears with a final puff of smoke. And then the castle just literally turns back to normal, and the supernatural mind tricks threat is gone. And then the travelers just escape. And the film, it ends like very suddenly. If it ends almost as suddenly as it began, and just left the audience like unsettled, confused, but just like incredibly amazed. So yeah, that was literally it. Like I said, 4 minutes, 3 minutes. It's very short. But what is this? What's the story actually about? So the House of the Devil, it's like labeled and called a horror film, but it was also meant to be like a dark comedy. So it was like, when I was talking about the skeletons dancing, and it was kind of goofy a little bit. So the devil's more of like a mischievous trickster than just like a pure like hardcore horror villain. And his movements are very exaggerated, and it reflects the theatrical style of that time. So, but like, even though like it looks goofy to like the general audience, there's still themes of like fear, supernatural, good versus evil, and even like the religious aspect of it. And a lot of these ideas would become the foundation of the horror genre for years and years to come. And let's get into how this film was made, because when we talk about really, really old stuff like this, I'm always just so curious to learn about how people were able to make this without, the resources that we have today. And it's usually always like incredibly smart. Like it's mind blowing. So, the movie was created by George Méliès. I'm just gonna call him George, but he was one of the most important figures in film history at this time. He wasn't just a filmmaker; he was also like a stage musician, and he really brought like the magic into cinema with this movie. And he used a lot of groundbreaking techniques, like the stop motion, the practical effects stages, the painted backdrops. It's all handmade, and of course, like the theatrical acting with the devil himself and the other two travelers. And at the time, when most films were just showing real life, like trains moving, people walking, like very basic human stuff, George was very fantasy. He wanted to go very fantastical with it. And that's why The House of the Devil, it was just like so different compared to other films during this era of movies. And silent films are just like, they're a gem, like a jewel. Like there are tons of silent films that are actually lost. Like, the ones that we have today were incredibly difficult to find. And in the late 1800s, film, it was very brand new. Like, cameras were hand cranked, and there was no sound, no coloring, no editing as we know today. So silent films relied purely on like physical acting, the exaggerated movements, visual storytelling, and live music in theaters when they would, reenact it live. And many of the effects had to be done in camera. So like one mistake could ruin the entire thing. It was very like risky. Like creating a 4-minute film required such intense protection and like perfectionist precision and stuff like that. So what George did, it wasn't just filmmaking. He was like literally inventing just like a new language for cinema. Why does this film matter so much to horror? The House of the Devil, and it introduces a lot of horror staples today, like supernatural villains, haunted locations, transformation effects, visual fear over dialogue is a big one. And without any of this stuff, we wouldn't get films like Nosferatu, Dracula, or Frankenstein, and some modern supernatural horror too. It's really all thanks to George here. He was truly the blueprint for this, and this was the first time cinema really tried to scare the audience instead of just not making a basic story, but just making a movie. So, for many, many years, actually, this movie was presumed to be lost forever. Like I said, a lot of early films were destroyed or reused and thrown away, and film stock is very fragile, and it's very easy to tear apart. And that part, when I learned about it, it's very sad to me, because who knows how much footage from as early as this time can get that is just simply lost, and we can never get it back. It's very sad, but eventually a surviving copy was actually rediscovered, and we now can watch it in its full entirety, and it's just incredible. It's like almost a miracle. But my final thoughts about this movie, it may be short, it may be silenced too, but the impact this movie had was it was great. It was huge. Just in its 4 minutes, it gave birth to horror cinema. Like, it truly inspired so many films to come in the future. And it actually, it reminds us that we don't need sound, blood, gore to make something scary. Like, we truly just have to be creative ourselves. And that's the art of filmmaking. It's just creativity. That's all that matters. But